Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Steven here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing, and today is a little brew talk. Kind of wanted to talk about hops, dry hopping, and so nothing better than a Deschutes Fresh Haze IPA made with citrusy hops. I don't know, does it say what kind of hops are in this thing? Tropical, citrus, crisp, freshness within 4 months. That's a good point for this video, by the way. I'm assuming it's citra hops because it just basically says tropical fruit and citrus. Anyway, yeah, so HopCreep is really what I want to talk about. What it is, how to avoid it. I mean, let's be honest. Trying to give you a nice view of the can, but anyway. Let's be honest. IPAs, specifically hazy or New England IPAs, I mean, that is like the go-to beer these days, right? I mean, that's what everybody loves. You go into any, tap room and you're going to see lots of IPAs. That's just the nature of the beast. So let's talk about hop creep. So what causes hop creep is, well, to start with, it is high levels of dry hops, right? That's hops that you're adding to your beer after you're done boiling it and you put the yeast in. And at some point between putting the yeast in and drinking the beer, you've added dry hops, which gives you a lot of the flavor of the hops without the bitterness because you're not actually heating the hops up at all. Cheers. You can't go wrong with Deschutes. So there's really three things you can get from hop creep, as they want to call it. You can get diacetyl. You can get carbonation issues, and you can get what we call over attenuation. So let's go over each one of those, right? So the problem, what causes all this, and the problem is that there is enzymes, and those of us who are nerdy about brewing know that these enzymes are what convert the sugar that's in the grain, the starch that's in the grain into sugar, right? You need those enzymes. So you have like the alpha and beta amylase enzymes. So sometimes, like if you have a stuck fermentation, right? It just won't drop. You can sometimes put a little bit of alpha amylase, for example, into your beer, to your fermenter, and it will sometimes help the yeast break down some of that, like unfermentable sugars that it might be struggling with. I keep a little bit on hand, but honestly, I hardly ever use it, but it's, a tool. At any rate, there are these enzymes present in hops. And so when you dry hop, those enzymes can start breaking down more of the unfermentable sugars. Hence, you get the carbonation issues, right? If you're going to bottle or even keg your beer and then you've dry hopped it, because of the enzymes that are in the hops, they kind of kick off fermentation again, basically. And so you end up with an overcarbonated beer because you planned for it at the end of, your period of time. And unfortunately, especially if you're canning, because it's going to sit out at room temperature, you get these super overcarbonated beers. You can also get over attenuation for the same reason, right? It's basically kicked off a secondary fermentation. And so you may have stopped at, 1012, but now it's down to 1006 because it kicked off fermentation. And now you have a beer that's gone up in alcohol a little bit. It's drier and thinner because it's gone past what you wanted it to go to. So it over attenuates. And then in addition to all that, because it's continuing that fermentation and it has the enzymes, you can get the formation of diacetyl, like get nice, popcorn buttery flavor that you don't want. in the beer, mostly. There are some beers where it's actually acceptable to have small amounts, but at any rate, so the interesting thing is you can get like a good 5% extra carbonation, CO2, in your cans or whatever when you're bottling your beer with this. And that's pretty significant. You know, you're going to get geysers and potentially bottle bombs from that. And with the over attenuation, I mean, you can go up in ABV, you know, 1 to 2%, you know, ABV higher than what you had anticipated, which isn't a big deal to me, too much in homebrewing. But the overall flavor and body of the beer can change when it over attenuates. Like I say, it becomes drier, thinner, and that may not be what you were going for. So how do you fix it? Like, is there a way to fix it? Can you get around it? There's some things you can do, but some of the things you really don't do at the homebrew level. One of which is you could filter or pasteurize the beer, right? So you can it, bottle it, whatever, and then you pasteurize it, which is what commercial breweries do, or even craft breweries. They pasteurize their beer. One, for safety, but also it locks everything in, right? And once you pasteurize it, the yeast cannot kick up. They're dead, right? You're basically killing the yeast. So they can't kick up any kind of fermentation, right, at that point. So that's the best fix for it, is if you can pasteurize. But that's really a pain in the butt to do at the home brew level. I've done it. You usually lose a few bottles that explode. It's just not. It's a pain. It's just not worth it. You could filter the beer. There are some places, you know, that filter beer and filter out the yeast. I don't know how that compares, you know, how well you're filtering the yeast out. But again, that's not really something I think you can do at the homebrew level. You're going to introduce a lot of oxygen if you do that. And, you know, you definitely don't want a lot of oxygen there to introduce at that phase of the brewing process, especially with a really hoppy beer. Now, you could also do the other option, which is you could use sulfates and sulfites to kill the yeast, right? Chemically kill the yeast. And some people do that a lot of times, like with ciders. That's pretty common. So that you can back sweeten the cider a little bit after it's done with the fermentation. So there's that option. So there's two options that could work. You could use chemicals, or you could pasteurize to kill the yeast. You could also reduce how much dry hops you're using. I don't think it's a great option, because, I mean, I'm assuming that you're putting a specific number of dry hops because that is the flavor profile you're going for. So that's not a great option, but I mean, that could do it. The other option is to cold store. So if you're, like I said, you've got cans or bottles at room temperature, that's going to kick up that extra fermentation. Whereas if you kept it cold in the refrigerator, or in a keg in a refrigerator, that's probably not going to happen because it's going to be too cold, or, you know, fermentation is going to be very slow at that temperature, and so you're probably not going to have an issue. You could also plan for it, right? What I mean by plan for it, you could under attenuate, you know, on purpose. And you could also, meaning, you know, you pull it a little bit early, and because you know it's going to keep fermenting even a little bit longer. Although that's a guessing game, you don't know how it's going to end. And the same thing, you could also undercarbonate it, right? And assuming that it's going to recarbonate some more. And the other option is, I've heard that you could dry hop later in this, and that's what I do. I dry hop probably like 4 days before I keg or bottle and start to cold crash. But some people like to do it right at high Kreuzen. So, you know, you can play with that. But that's all you can really do. So at any rate, that's what dry hop is, if you've ever heard that, especially with hoppy beers. I'll be back in another week with another video. And until then, keep on brewing.